Hey, what do you know? This is the Melvin Live Show here. Today, a little late. I must apologize because I need to do some client works first before I get to the live show. By the way, I'm still really very excited because of a few changes that's going to be coming up. And as of now, I can't say much about it, but make sure you stay tuned because I'm going to be launching and also demonstrating few things um, as I am doing this so that you kind of can follow along and see what works, what doesn't work, and what are some of the mistakes that I make. Right. So this is like, as real as reality we can go. This is what it is. So, in case you're wondering what's going on in this channel itself, we very much focus on talking about the journey from trading time for money to LIFT freedom. And LIFT freedom essentially is talking about location, intellectual, financial, as well as time freedom. And that's the end goal that I think most of us would want to be able to achieve. Because, being a person who trades time for money, I think there is a limit in terms of the amount that we can earn. And so, in order to kind of raise the threshold itself, there I mean, there's just so much you can do to raise the threshold. So at some point in time, you're going to hit a ceiling. And, for me, I have hit my ceiling quite a number of times already. And so, getting more clients, I hit the ceiling, charging as high as I can, I hit the ceiling. And so, there has to be a better way. And, I'm glad to share with you that along the way in the last 5 years or so, I have been able to build up, you know, um, additional source of revenue. So, in fact, the income that I get is not just from one source only. I mean, previously I only have income from one source, and the scariest part is that if you're the only one who's doing the work to earn the income, and there is only income from one source, what if you cannot do the work, and what if that only source of income kind of dries up. So what are you going to do? And so I think that's kind of something that kind of hit people quite hard this time around because of COVID. And if you are looking at how you can digitize as well as to be able to create a whole new way, right? Reinventing the way that people learn and how you teach, then this is the channel that you want to follow. So today we're just going to continue from what we spoke about yesterday when it talked about the idea of creating system, because once you have your expertise digitized, you want to be able to create a system, right? And so yesterday we talked about you want to get as many leads as you can, because from that pool you will then shrink it down to the number of prospects, and then from there you shrink it down to the number of customers, right? And so today, what we want to talk about, I apologize because I still have a bit of a sniffers here, but today what we're going to be talking about is the approach. In other words, how do you come up with systems itself? And just let me share with you how I came about to uncover this try and tested approach in creating systems. So it dates back to year 2004, because that was the time when I started working with schools. And at the point in time, schools were really just implementing systems and processes based on a set of criteria that is benchmarked against some of the world's best companies. And so, schools being schools, they really had no idea in terms of how they could implement that. Of course, fast forward to what you have today, more than 16 years later, schools are a lot better. Most of them already have got the systems in place. Now, really, it's how they can take it to the next level. And that requires a different level of thinking in terms of strategy, in terms of innovation, in terms of mindset. And that's why I kind of moved from systems to strategic thinking. So it dates back to 2004 because there was a time when the schools here in Singapore, they were going through this massive change and they were implementing this thing called the school excellence model. Now, the school excellence model, like I mentioned to you, it's a set of benchmark that it's measured against arguably the world's best organization itself. And many of these world best organizations are, awardees of the Malcolm Baldrige Award in the US. And so that became like the benchmark itself. And so what we as in Singapore, what we were trying to do was we wanted to turn all of schools into a kind of a benchmark. Uh, and that benchmark is to be benchmarked against the world's best organization. And as I mentioned, schools being schools, they are educators first, administrators second. So when it comes down to putting in place systems and processes, they were actually not, uh, I would say, they were not very familiar with that. And so that is where I come in. So me and my team, we came in and we kind of helped them go through this process about thinking about how and why systems and processes are needed. And here we're not just looking at on paper putting it in place, but in reality, it doesn't get done, right? So the whole approach itself has to be congruent. And so that's where we kind of leverage this, uh, standard itself in terms of implementing uh, systems and processes. So the approach that I'm going to be sharing with you here today is called the radar approach or radar approach, depending on how you pronounce it. So I'm just going to call it radar approach because that's how we pronounce it here. So the radar approach essentially stands for results, approach, deployment, and assessment and review. And so that spells out the word radar. And and so when you think about this whole approach itself, primarily the end in mind comes with this, right? You start off with the results, right? End in mind. We start off with the end in mind. So what is the results that you want? Now, based on the result that you want, then you talk about the approach that you are going to take in order to achieve these results. Now, that approach itself, of course, is going to be determined by the mindset as well as the assumptions that the everybody have in the organization, right? And so that approach itself will kind of determine what kind of strategies that you would deploy in, on the ground itself. And of course, as you deploy the strategies, it's not going to turn out good or it's not going to turn out 100% right at the onset. And so that's why you will need the assessment and review because the assessment and review essentially is to help you fine tune and look at what's working, what's not working, and how can we fix it. So this entire approach essentially it's taken from the EFQM or European Foundation for Quality Management itself. I'm not here to teach you about the rudder approach, but essentially what I would like you to think of when you're thinking about creating systems is to use this particular framework itself, this approach, right? And so always look at what is the results that you want. So for example, if we kind of relate to what we were talking about yesterday, if your result that you want to achieve is that you want at least every month to get 100 people who have expressed interest in your online course, right? So if that is the if that is the results that you want, then what is the approach that you're going to take? So if I am going to look at having 100 people who have expressed interest, what I'm going to do is at a few level. One is, of course, I am going to publish a lot of content generating awareness about what this thing is all about, right? And then the process that I'm going to put in place is once people have watched the content or read the content or seen the content itself, I would then want to find a way that I could kind of make them an offer or get them to sign up or to put their hands up and say that this is what I want. right? So the result will determine the kind of approach that you want to take. And then, of course, it's to look at what are the initiative or the strategies that you're going to deploy on the ground. So, for example, how are you going to create? What kind of content are you going to create based on the the approach itself? So, if the approach is I want to get people to know more about this thing. So, what is the strategies that I can implement, that I can deploy on the ground? So, think, for example, if you want people to pay attention to you, you want people to be aware of it. There are a few things. One, of course, is that you want to be able to earn their attention. And by earning the attention itself, essentially what you're looking at is that you have to make sure that you answer to their primary question, what's in it for me? So once you are able to answer that question, the primary question itself, then you have a chance to kind of get them to pay attention to you and to consider to put their hands up and say, yes, I'm interested in this. Now, as we said earlier on, it's everything that we plan is not definitely not going to be perfect the first time. So the first time when you do something, you might not get the kind of outcomes, but eventually what you want to do is you want to fine tune, you want to based on the feedback that people have been giving you, you want to fine tune, you want to sharpen, you want to tweak in the way that you finally would be able to present it to the end user itself, right? So, and when you talk about evaluation, for example, what are some of the tools or some of the methods that you can use that we use in terms of identify what are some of the areas for improvement and then how to implement those improvement itself. So if you really want to set up like a full fledged business, right? Because here we are talking about a 1 person, 1 million own digital business. The key thing here really is that you want to be able to look at it and say that, okay, well, if it's going to be a 1 person thing and to achieve a 1 million, because I just got off the phone with a client and he was telling me that in the last, they just started 2 months back and they were already able to reach almost 1 million in terms of orders, right? However, they have a team of people to do the work, and so that is not a 1 person business, right? And it's not something that it's location free. Uh, they are kind of tied down to where they are here. So that's not the kind of business that we want to do because we want the kind of freedom that comes with running the business itself. So in a sense, you can say that we want to kick and eat it. We want to be able to earn the kind of income, yet we want to be able to have the freedom to do whatever we want. And so, as you're doing this, you would need to kind of evaluate and say that how are you going to be able to put in place all the systems itself? Because once you have the systems in place and once these processes are either documented, automated, or outsourced, once you have all this thing done, then essentially you have a you know a machine that is able to kind of generate consistently, and this is what we're talking about in business, right? Consistency and reliability, because once you're able to do that, that's where you have a business itself. All right, I'm going to call it short tonight because I am feeling a little bit under the weather, but I thank you so much for watching. And of course, once again, if you have got questions for me, feel free to leave it in the comments or send me a message. And if this video has been useful, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to this, if you want to follow along, like what's going to happen, and in addition to that, the test that I'm going to be doing, if that's what you are intending to do and you want to follow along, make sure you subscribe and make sure you stay in touch by following me on Facebook or, you know, subscribe to me on YouTube itself. All right. So with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye bye.